Um,
Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matala, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to something else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
Okay. Welcome to episode number 242 of Something Else. Feast your hair holes in this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action number 70 from November 5th, 2003. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the lads to my kid Cash. It's Cyndi. Cyndi, how the hell you doing today? Either Cyndi's microphone isn't working or she's not talking to me anymore. Actually, Cyndi's not even here. Cyndi has dropped off. I don't know if this is actually a technical issue or if she's just mad that I called her Laz. 1 second here, ladies and gentlemen. Well, what the hell? We're talking about NWA Total Nonstop Action, episode number 70 from November 5, 2003. Cyndi's now typing away. I don't know what the hell she's talking about, but all right. Cyndi's back eventually. Cyndi, what the hell are you talking about?
Read the when we get to the match. I'll say what I said to you on Facebook.
Okay. All right. So anyway, NWA TNA episode number 70, November 5, 2003 from Nashville, Tennessee. We are more than halfway through this. As we've mentioned, we are closer to the end than the beginning. Now, before we, of course, dive into this week's episode of TNA, we'd like to tell you what else has happened in the world of TNA by going into page 12 of this week's issue of the Wrestling Observer newsletter to read the TNA news. Now, the big TNA news we'll get to at the end of the episode, because why spoil the surprise at the beginning of the episode? So, other TNA news. New Japan aired their version of the famous Jeff Jarrett Hulk Hogan guitar angle, and do not expect this version of it to ever air on TNA, because what happened was after Jarrett busts the guitar over Hogan's head, Chono goes over and kicks Jarrett's ass, and him and Hogan leave the room together, shaking hands. Yeah, do not expect that to ever be shown. Bound for Glory is now scheduled for, and I quote, either February 22nd or 29th, since WWE has No Way Out on February 15th and WrestleMania 20 on March 14th. The educated guess is that it would be on February 29th on Leap Day. And TNA is implementing a new format come January where you, the buying audience, can buy every Wednesday show in an entire month for one low price of $34.95. And that includes whether there's 4 Wednesdays or 5 Wednesdays. So, if you're a hardcore fan, you're going to save yourself between $5 and $15 by doing it that way.
And trust me, with the shows that are coming up, if you're diehard, you'll want to save that $5 to $15 just to buy the alcohol.
If you're one of the 6,000 people who buy on like the lowest weeks they have, if you're one of those 6,000 people who buy every fucking week because you're a glutton for punishment, apparently, it's a good idea. It's a good way to save a few bucks. Apparently, the cable companies aren't as jumping for joy with this as TNA is. And to be fair, not entirely sure why TNA would be jumping for joy with this because there'd be less money in their coffers. But whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's
So
desperation.
I I think it's one last effort to try to get this thing to get this weekly pay-per-view thing going. So onto the show. Now, I'm going to say something that we've said what feels like 2 weeks in a row now, and we're going to say it this week, and we're going to say it next week at least. The show opens with Scott Hudson outside the arena with Jimmy Hart, standing next to a stretch limo. This show gets very repetitive in some ways. And, people who used to whine about Raw always starting with a 20-minute opening promo, you need to go back and watch like this TNA from this era. It's like they have a format that they just plug different matches around the same format every week here. But anyway, Jimmy Hart said that Jim Duggan and Rick Steiner were his master plan. He has issues. Then
Big
he
time
said that,
issues.
yes, Jeff Jarrett's biggest nightmare may be under his nose. And then he began maniacally laughing. What were your thoughts on this exciting intro to the show?
I just didn't get it. I didn't get the maniacal laughing for Jimmy Hart. The funny thing is, though, this morning I actually watched a Memphis show from around the same time.
2003?
Yeah,
Why would you do that?
I was bored. I didn't want to sit through a second episode of Dispatch. Okay, to start, just to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, we're recording two in a day because I figured it would be a good idea to lump these two episodes together because of certain similarities. That is namely Sting. Because as noted by Arya last week, Sting was signed to 4 appearances. And 2 of them are this week.
4
and next
matches,
week.
specifically.
4 matches. And 2 of them are this week and next week. The 4th match happens later. So I figured, all right, let's combine these 2 together. Maybe there's something good that could float us through both these shows. I don't know. Regret was immediate, especially for the second show.
Yes, especially since she messaged me on Friday afternoon saying, "Hey, do you want to do 2 this week?" Like, I'm gonna throw something at you. All right. Well, we can't end this show if we don't get going here. The opener of this show, CM Punk and Julio De Niro versus Kid Cash and Laz.
Yes, Laz is back.
Laz somehow got a second booking because that Super X Cup pay-per-view match against Mad Mikey apparently wasn't enough to keep him away from the territory. Now, in case you forget, Laz's gimmick, it's very subtle, but his gimmick is that he's gay. I hope you all got that. Laz is gay.
Gayer than Bruce pretended to be.
Yes. He was checking out Kid Cash's ass on the way to the ring, which, whatever. So at one point early in the match, Punk is trying to pull Laz over on like a schoolboy or roll-up type thing. Julio does a springboard clothesline, and Laz, being the super coordinated person that he undoubtedly is, sat down right on Punk's face. Now, when Cash was in the ring, this match was perfectly adequate.
Yeah.
In fact, if you gave Kid Cash a perfectly adequate partner, I bet we could have had a perfectly adequate tag team match. I will say, though, that in theory, a tag team of Southern redneck slash implied homophobe Kid Cash and Laz could be a fun pairing. But instead, this just made me wonder who missed their booking this week. Cash tried to give Julio a pile driver, while Laz kept trying to fuck Julio in the ass, and that led to a breakdown in communication with their team. And then Julio pinned Laz with what was called the near-death experience, which is a combination powerbomb buff blockbuster.
It's a good
After the
finisher,
match,
and
yeah,
it was a good finisher. It looked good. But
and it was
apparently
timed well.
the story behind the Laz thing, according to Tanay, was that the NWA committee put him with Cash as a punishment for Cash being a dick to them over the past few months.
So when does Jeff Jarrett start teaming with Laz? Because, spoiler alert, he's a dick to everybody.
Double spoiler alert: Laz is gone.
Oh, apparently what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander, I guess. Um, so after the match, Kid Cash threw a tantrum and beat up Laz. Abyss technically made the save and stalked Cash out of the building. All I'll say is that thanks to Cash, this was better than Laz's first match. I gave it a 3.5 out of 10.
I was right there with you. I gave it a 3.0 out of 10, mainly because Kaz or Laz is useless. Let me say that again. Laz is useless.
Useless with a Z?
Yeah, why not? Or Laz. Hold on, take a drink. He stops wrestling in a few months, so apparently he got the hint that he sucked.
Hmm. Maybe he never really got the hint. Maybe he gets hurt, and you're just saying, "Oh, maybe he realized he sucks." You know. Now Scott Hudson was now with Raven. Raven said Jim Mitchell has been reassigned to a new parish in hell. That was the nicest thing Raven's ever said about Jim Mitchell.
Yeah.
Panay is in the ring and brings out Jeff Jarrett. The fans chant Hogan, Hogan, and Jarrett said he's here to talk about Hogan and Sting. Jarrett pulled out a Japanese newspaper asking how Hogan's surgery went. I want to know when Jarrett learned to read Japanese. He then pulled out a German magazine which asked when will Hogan show up at the asylum. When did Jeff Jarrett learn to read German? Tanay went to make a smart-ass comment, so Jarrett took the mic and ordered him out of the ring. Tanay bowed up until Jarrett threatened him. This brought out AJ Styles' music, and AJ was in the crowd. The problem with this is AJ blended in so well with the non-paying audience that he didn't look special or like someone who stands out at all. Jarrett mocked him for being dragged out of the building last week. AJ said that he's an impatient man, so he wants to know when the rematch will be. We got a picture-in-picture of Sonny Siaki, Trinity, and ECMO watching. AJ wants a rematch. Jarrett said no. AJ said he sucks, which to me does not seem like a way to get a title shot. Jarrett said he doesn't belong in the heavyweight division, so he should go back to the X division. AJ said the X division doesn't need him, but what he needs is competition. AJ then took almost a full minute to walk through the crowd. And let's hear it. He goes the entire minute to walk through the crowd to fight Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett won their fair fight because this is TNA and the heel has to always win a fair fight. AJ didn't gain the advantage until Jarrett started acting like an ass, outran the red shirts, but AJ was holding his own with them until Jarrett clonked AJ's hands with a chair because AJ's mama didn't raise no fool, you see. The red shirts dragged him to the back door, where Abyss just happened to still be. Abyss beat them both up. Ryan Wilson took a black hole slam, and Abyss gripped up Don Callis until Kevin Northcutt stopped him. Abyss went for the shock treatment on Northcutt, but Callis screamed at him to put Northcutt down, so Abyss just completed the move. And Abyss stalked him away.
This
Thoughts
was
on this?
15 minutes, and I hated all of it.
All of it, you say?
Yeah. Jeff Jarrett is desperately trying to be Triple H. Like, I know a lot of us online hated Triple H's 15, 20-minute long show opening promos on Raw. Jarrett's is worse. Like, when backed into a corner, Triple H could hold his own, Jarrett can't. And then they undercut AJ again. Like, it should be AJ wins the fight, but then the red shirts come in and even the odds. Because it's the Jeff Jarrett show starring Jeff Jarrett. And then we have the Abyss stuff, which I guess was okay, but I'm also really tired of seeing the red shirt security. By the way, spoiler alert, we're going to be dealing with them with the next 4 months.
Oh, come
I
on.
just hated the segment.
I know what you really want. You really want Redshirt Security as the tag team champions, and you want Michael Shane as the forever X Division champion.
Be careful what you wish for, Arya. Be careful what you wish for.
The forever X Division champion. It's where Athena got the idea for her gimmick from.
Why? Because she gets to manage all of her exes?
No, because Michael Shane's going to be champion for the next 3 years, 4 years even.
So Hudson is with Jim Mitchell backstage, and Jim Mitchell drops one of my favorite lines of the night. I'm a lecher, not a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
He says that he will refuse to bow down before Raven and will outsmart him, and that the clever can always beat the strong. We'll see about that.
He didn't say that he will refuse to bow down to Raven. He said that he did refuse to bow down to Raven, and that's why Raven and him had a falling out. Because, Mitchell didn't kowtow to him. And while Raven can outpower and out-wrestle James Mitchell, he can't outthink James Mitchell.
Hey.
Mm-hmm. All right. So someone decided that staring at Tracy Brooks' breasts
Yeah, I got it. No.
Someone decided that staring at Tracy Brooks' breasts for the last few weeks was not interesting anymore. So instead of having another video where we just stared at Tracy's boobs, we get a match. Shane Douglas versus the Sandman. A match that wasn't really that good when they were in ECW 10 years earlier, and now they're having it in TNA. The finish to this match saw Tracy Brooks run in and give Sandman the flying vagina to the face, and Shane pinned him with not one, but 2 belly-to-belly suplex. I will bet my left arm that Sandman was not supposed to kick out of the first one. Now, here's the issue, and I always thought this, even when I was younger with Shane Douglas and Tracy Brooks. I know what they were going for. They were going to redo the Shane Douglas Francine thing. The problem is Shane Douglas may only be 38 years old, but he's been wrestling for so long and he looks old. So it's easy to think that he is older than 38. Tracy is 28, but she looks younger than that. And because this is her first real exposure, it's easier to think that she is younger than that. So instead of Shane Douglas and Francine, which is what they were going for, this is giving off creepy father-daughter vibes. And no one wants to see that.
Nope.
And here's the only positive I'll give to this match. Shane Douglas did not throw up this time. 0.5 out of 10. Is this Shane's first match since the Raven match?
I think so. I will say this, once Shane Douglas gets away from ex-ECW people, he actually can put on a comp. He's actually pretty good. But a lot of stuff was botched in this match.
Who in this company do you want to see him wrestle?
I don't know. Put him with some of the younger guys. Like, I know he looks younger than he is, but I don't know. Christopher Daniels? Maybe Chris Sabin?
We get Christopher Daniels versus Shane Douglas on a TNA pay-per-view.
That should be a decent match.
It's in 2009.
That was not a decent match. That match was shit.
It was not. It was not. It was at that Slammiversary where they brought in Shane to wrestle Daniels, and they brought in some other veteran to lose the match. I think they brought back Raven for that show too. But the whole point was it was like, oh, here's Daniels got a second chance in TNA because that was after he came back after the Feast or Fired gimmick. So the gimmick was Shane Douglas was coming back now to get his second chance. And well, let's say Shane Douglas didn't throw up in that match either.
Yeah, but he started to look his age.
Which is a positive when you consider he's 38 here and he looks to be 44. So when he's 44, if he looks like he's 44, that's a good thing.
Never mind, he looked like he was 54.
I gave this match a 0.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 1 out of 10, so we're kind of on the same page.
Scott Hudson is with Jimmy Hart again, and now they're in Raven's lair, but they've changed Raven's red light bulb to a blue light bulb. Jimmy said Sting is here because Sting is his friend, and he is trying his best to get the fans to chant why at Jeff Jarrett. Sting showed up and yelled that it's showtime. Not really, because it's, not really showtime. Sonny Siaki and ECMO with Trinity versus America's Most Wanted. If you don't recall last week, Siaki and ECMO are Glenn Gilberti's latest roadblock between America's Most Wanted and a tag team title match with Simon and Swinger. If TNA had a deep tag team division, and by deep, I mean another quality babyface team, this would be a great feud to split AMW away from the tag team titles for a few months. Similar to how they took Jarrett away from AJ by having him feud with Legend for a while and then Daniels for a while. Instead, Simon and Swinger are floundering, wrestling, whatever jamokes walked through the door this week. And in fact, they didn't wrestle. I don't think they wrestled last week either. But, they haven't wrestled in at least 2 weeks, and they're not going to wrestle this week or next week. So it's just, they're sitting here twiddling their thumbs until it's time to wrestle AMW again, more or less.
Yeah, I think they wrestled on Explosion.
That doesn't count.
We have to make a decision on that because now that they're really talking about Explosion on TNA now.
It doesn't like when they acknowledge Explosion, it's by here's 6 seconds of an interview that aired on Explosion. And they do that a bunch of times. That doesn't count as Explosion meaning anything.
And also talking about it during commentary a lot. I mean, that's how they brought up Julio De Niro and CM Punk by saying, hey, this team has been undefeated on Explosion because they've only been wrestling as a team on Explosion.
And do we ever see any of that? Do we know how many matches they've had on Explosion? Like, they could have one match on Explosion, and if they win, they're technically undefeated on Explosion.
Well, here's the problem. That requires forethought from the company, and when has TNA, especially at this point in time, ever have any forethought?
But that's the point. If you're going to bring up Explosion as if that's a thing we have to pay attention to, they need to make it something that we should be paying attention to, but they don't. Anyway, back to this show.
I did look it up. They had a tag title match on Explosion against John Saxon and Scotty Matthews.
Yeah, that doesn't count. Ekmo and Siaki used a combo press slam cutter on Harris for a near fall. Ekmo accidentally splashed Siaki in the corner. The finish saw David Young and hit Harris with a foreign object, and Siaki pinned him with the Siakalypse. It wasn't until about 2 minutes from now that I realized the foreign object was the Glenn Gilberti tennis racket. Now, as I mentioned, this could be a great start to a great feud, but Ekmo won't be here by December. I gave this match a 5.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 6 out of 10. I thought it was the best match of the night.
Interesting.
I don't know if you agree with that or not.
I do not agree.
I say that because I thought it had the most intrigue to it. It was a simple story about how AMW can actually take down Ekmo. And it just felt like a really solid, good match. And so I gave it a 6.
All right. So Scott Hudson was now with Glenn Gilberti, Simon Diamond, and Johnny Swinger. Simon said they don't wrestle losers, and they all put over David Young when DY walked in. Young said that he got a match booked with him and Gilberti versus 3 Live Crew tonight, and by doing this, they could eliminate 2 teams from contention. And Gilberti wasn't too happy about it, but Simon and Swinger, to continue from last week, they didn't really seem to care too much that their manager keeps being put in these situations.
I mean, as far as David Young, is David Young considered his idea? It's actually not a bad idea.
Yes, that's the point. It's, hey, if AMW is being pushed down, then we could also put 3 Live Crew down. Now, it does ask the question, though, because again, as we mentioned, they do not have 85 teams in TNA. But if you do push AMW down the rankings, and now you beat 3 Live Crew to push them down the rankings, doesn't that prop AMW up now to near a top spot again?
Not really, because you have The Gathering, Julio De Niro and CM Punk, who won tonight. You also have Siaki and Ekmo, who won tonight against AMW. So, and plus, De Niro and Punk are faces, so conceivably, you know what? 2-week program, prolong the agony of AMW. But it's not too far-fetched. And plus, we actually get to see what Punk can actually do in the ring. And
so you're telling me that CM Punk guy is a pretty good wrestler?
From what I saw in 2003, yeah.
Wow,
I mean,
how dare you
think about it.
How dare you be? You
think
just
about
besmirched. You just besmirched the world heavyweight champion.
I said he was a good wrestler in 2003. I mean, he's a great
Yes.
wrestler in 2025.
Well, you need to say that because it just sounds like you're besmirching the world champion.
I would have, but you kept on interrupting me.
Uh-huh. Anyway, we go to an 8-man battle royal. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's just they just didn't actually explain this. But wasn't it supposed to be a 5-man battle royal?
No, it was an invitation. Apparently, it was an invitation. There was supposed to be like 5 seats. It's like the stupid bowling tournament rules. Like 5 would square off against the seeds. 5 would square off against the 2 seed. 4 would square off against the 3 seed. The winner of those matches face off, and the winner faces the champion.
Yes, but when they announced the match, they strongly implied that it was going to be a 5-man battle royal. And
Well,
it was not. It was an 8-man battle royal. And still don't know how Michael Shane has the power to book this tournament, but book it he did.
he probably
And
got Don Callis' approval.
well, he did not pull out the losers for the battle royal either. We had Low Key, Chris Sabin, Sanjay Dutt, Shark Boy, Johnny Storm, Chad Collier, Christopher Daniels, and X. Now we'll explain who X is here at the end of the match. But X, I'm not saying it was somebody whose name I didn't catch and I just put a shorthand in there until I looked it up. No, 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 no. This was a man named X. And Cyndi, I'm going to press pause for a minute because I got to go hit my chirping smoke alarm. So I'll be right back.
All right, well, Arya does that.
And welcome back. Um, so as we were mentioning before the break, this was supposed to be a 5-man battle royal that became an 8-man battle royal. And essentially, the first 3 people who get eliminated are out of the tournament. Um, and so what happens here is the winner gets a bye to the finals of the tournament, and then 2 through 5 will meet up. Number 2 will wrestle number 5. Number 3 will wrestle number 4. And the winners of those 2 matches have a 3-way match with the winner of the tournament. And the winner of that match wrestles Michael Shane. Why can't we just have a tournament? A simple, easy tournament. Hell, you don't have to really do a tournament, really. You could do we're going to have 4 matches this week, and the 4 winners are going to have a 4-way next week, and the winner of that will get a title shot at Michael Shane. Hell, I don't know. Hell, you could even do it as, hey, because we want to extend it out and have the title match on Thanksgiving or the day before Thanksgiving. You could do 2 of the matches this week, 2 of the matches next week, and then have the 4-way, on the 19th, and then have the X Division title match on the 26th, if that is what you wish to do.
Because we can't
Anyway,
have anything normal in TNA. That's why.
we have to overcomplicate things, ladies and gentlemen. So Johnny Storm gave Shark Boy a double springboard hurricanrana, which was mistimed, not in the fact that, Johnny Storm mistimed it, but it was supposed to lead to X catching Shark Boy for a move, but X was completely out of position, so Shark Boy had to wait, and it made the move look like shit. X eliminated Johnny Storm, Shark Boy, and Sanjay Dutt in that order, so we were down to 5 pretty quickly. Shane Douglas and Tracy Brooks were shown watching this match. Daniels and Low Key worked together on Collier, culminating in a slingshot out of the ring. X gave Low Key a buckle bomb, which led to the 3 remaining small guys beating up the big guy briefly. Why didn't they keep working on X to eliminate him? That is a great question, and I'm happy we live in a world where you can ask questions. Daniels tried to eliminate Low Key, which pissed off Low Key, and we got the best 1 minute of the match as Daniels and Low Key ran spots together. Low Key got a dragon sleeper on Daniels, so Sabin scooped them both up and out of the ring, which means that as finishers number 3 and 4, Daniels will wrestle Low Ki next week, which on by itself, I tell you, next week we're gonna have Christopher Daniels versus Low Ki. That by itself is worth $10. You
Yep.
know, I I would definitely have gone into that saying, hey, call my cable company. I want to buy November 12th TNA pay-per-view. So that leads us to X and Chris Sabin. And X breaks out the American national television debut of the package pile driver, the move that Kevin Steen would make sort of famous in Ring of Honor. And he actually tossed Sabin because it wasn't even a pinfall finish. It was still a battle royal at the end. Um, X eliminates Chris Sabin, wins the match, and advances now to the finals of the tournament. Now for the fun stuff. X, in case you didn't know, was the former Pierre Carl Ouellette and the future PCO under a mask. Now, it's 2025, and we've had Samoa Joe, Abyss, and Moose as the X Division champion over the years. However, this was the first time you had somebody who was not a cruiserweight in the X Division. And I can tell you from just remembering this time period, it did not go over well with people online. People online were pissed, and actually a lot of the guys were pissed that they would put a heavyweight in the X Division, even though the whole gimmick has always been it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits. It's like, the people were not happy with X being in this, with PCO being part of this. And I know this doesn't last very long, but I'm just going to say for one night, I thought this was a fun addition to what had become kind of a stale, stagnant X Division. And
Oh
while I
yeah.
may think differently in a few weeks, I'm calling this a win. And I thought this was the best match on the show. I gave it a 7.0 out of 10.
I just wasn't into it. I'll be honest, I wasn't really into this.
This battle
I
royal
gave it
was
a
just not
five.
that into you.
It's just not into you. You know, make Greg Behrendt do the sequel to the book. To his book, he's just not that into you. Oh God, I just made a Greg Behrendt reference. Oh boy. Remember when he
May
had a
someone
talk
have
show?
mercy on your soul. Who?
Greg Behrendt?
Who?
Exactly. Anyway, I just thought the action was there, and I don't think a minute of Low Ki and Christopher Daniels going after each other elevates this above anything than a 5.
I think, especially once they really got down to the last few minutes, it wasn't even just that. I think it was good work all around. I liked PCO and Sabin. And, I was looking forward to seeing more of this. I may think differently come next week, but this week I'm like, what the hell? So
And
Scott
there's going to
Hudson
be
was
a
now with
reason to hate PCO because of the finish.
Scott Hudson was now with Don Callis, and Hudson asked what his control is over Abyss. And I gotta say, that's a really bad question since Callis showed zero control over Abyss. So Callis changed the subject to be about X's impressive debut. Hudson brings up out of the blue that we're going to hear from Rowdy Roddy Piper tonight. Callis said Piper is insane and not in a good way. The red shirts walked in and said they know where he is, and they all scurried away with no talk about who the hell he is.
I think it's intimated that it's Abyss.
Well, they then need to actually say that because even by the end of this show, there are many different options as to who the hell they end up talking about. But whatever. By the way, can I just say, I fucking hate Don Callis's name. He needs to change the spelling of his last name. I had a seventh grade science teacher who wanted me to spell my name the way he wanted to spell it to make it easier on him. Well, I want Don Callis to change the spelling of his last name to Callus, so I stopped fighting with my Google Docs every week because it keeps fucking auto-correcting the name. No matter how many times I turn off auto-correcting, no matter how many times I add Callis, Callis, to dictionary, it keeps fucking changing it to Callis with a U. So Don Callis, you need to change your fucking name.
Do what I do. Use Notepad.
I don't like Notepad. I like Google Docs because I can save all these in Google and not have to worry about switching if I get a new computer. So we then go to a Roddy Piper video. Now, 2 months ago, Roddy Piper was on this show and got fired. He has spent 2 months trying to get back on the show. They actually, at one point, if you remember, they were going to play a Roddy Piper interview, and Don Callis beat up the tape. Where was Don Callis this week? Because Piper was standing outside of a hospital and said that the NWA was his home. He wants to make the red shirts wear white shirts so those shirts could turn red when he makes them bleed. Piper somehow knew Rick Santel's name, but didn't know Eric Watts' name, which, by the way, I want to fucking know how he knew Rick Santel's name.
Maybe Rick Santel worked in his Portland territory. I don't know.
I doubt even then. He then said he may or may not allow Hulk Hogan to win the NWA title. This was your usual Piper promo where he made no sense and he just talked about everything and nothing at all. And by the way, speaking of Don Callis not pulling the plug on this video made him an even bigger heel to me.
Yeah. What is it with Dusty and Piper? No, they can say everything yet say nothing at the same time.
I don't know.
This was not good, and I hated the. Sometimes the gorilla video can work, and the black and white editing could work. This didn't. So now the show properly falls off a cliff.
I thought the show fell off the cliff when we pitched it to Roddy Piper.
In ring, it falls off a cliff.
Well, we then go to our next match, which is Glenn Gilberti and David Young versus BG James and Ron Killings with Konnan. Now, we did not know which two members of Three Live Crew were going to wrestle until the bell rang. If you recall, they did this gimmick with Triple X back in, when they were the champions earlier this year. And that was a heel gimmick. That made them bigger heels because they did not allow their opponents to know who that they would be wrestling at the time. These are baby faces doing this move. In case you forget. Now, Konnan was wearing a Phoenix Coyotes sweater. I guess it would have been too easy to suck up to the crowd by wearing a Nashville Predators sweater instead.
Well, the Nashville Predators then kind of sucked.
So what? The whole point is sucking up to the crowd, not wearing, the sweater of another team. The story here is that Gilberti had not prepared properly because Young just put the match on him, so he was still lacing his boots and tying up his tights as the match began. Normally, I would say this match was better when Ron Killings was wrestling David Young, but they were both having a bad night here. Killings at one point goes for a float over in the corner, but Young stopped in the middle of the ring, so Truth basically had to kick him in the stomach. Gilberti knocked Borash off of his dented chair and slid it into the ring, but the referee got it. BG got Gilberti's tennis racket, swacked Young with it, and Killings pinned him with a scissors kick. The referee fucked up this one as he counts one before Truth even made the cover, so there was confusion over whether or not that was the finish, and it was. After the match, Three Live Crew took turns beating up Gilberti. Simon and Swinger ran in for immoral support, and very briefly had the advantage until AMW made the save. Harris and Storm stole the belts, and Harris cut a promo while Storm physically put the title belt on. Harris demanded a title match, but BG cut him off because they wanted a title shot. This brought out Siaki, Ekmo, and Trinity, who wanted a title match, and Gilberti vowed to make everyone happy next week. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Laz had a better match than this. 1.0 out of 10.
Oh no, I thought it was fun, and plus I like Three Live Crew more than you do. Like in this case, 2.5 times more than you do, because I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. And plus, also, I don't count post-match stuff in with my grade.
Who said I did?
You did a couple weeks ago,
When was this?
in the middle of the show.
Need a specific.
I can't
'Cause
remember.
I do no such thing. The rating stops at the match. Unless unless you're talking about that match that they restarted the match and it was a whole big rigmarole. Because I did not count the post match. It was not a post match, it was a continuation of the match.
All right. Thanks for the clarification. So now we get whatever the hell this match is.
Well, tell the listener what the match is.
It is Raven versus James Mitchell in a last man standing match. This match would have been finished sooner. Okay, there's a promo package between Raven and Mitchell to break up the time with all the rigmarole.
Mm-hmm. So it was technically a Texas death match because you had to pin your opponent before the 10 count. So yeah, so you had to pin the guy, then get the 10 counts. It wasn't a WWE last man standing match. Tenay said this was Mitchell's first ever match, so I spent most of the 4.5 minutes that this match went looking this up because I could swear Mitchell had a 3-way match last year with America's Most Wanted when they were feuding with the New Church. And it turns out he was scheduled to have a 3-way match with the New Church last year, but for whatever reason I didn't bother to look up. He substituted in Belladonna, who was the 100-pound woman that used to be in his group that got her ass kicked by America's Most Wanted.
And by the way, this is kind of a trend right now for TNA and a positive trend. It's been a few months and no women have been beaten up on the show.
Well, that's because Dickhead's no longer booking the show.
Even when Dickhead was booking it, there was no violence against Trinity or. And by the way, since you opened up the door,
Alexis has been left the company a few months ago, and she was getting beaten up on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Tracy's been out for a few months, and they were slowly building up to Trinity getting her ass kicked. But that's pretty much been stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all the women we have in the promotion.
Right.
By the way, this is not actually Mitchell's first match ever. He did have an indie match in like 1998. So I did find that out while doing my research. So Raven made him bleed early and often. Punk and Julio ran down to cheer Raven on, which allowed Mitchell to take over. Raven made his comeback, pinned Mitchell with an even flow DDT, and then Mitchell didn't get up, so Raven won. Raven then put the dog collar on Mitchell and hung him over the top rope. And I'll say this was a great visual because the blood was streaming down Mitchell's face all over his pretty white shirt. And I'll say this, after everything we've seen in this feud for the past 3 months, The only way it could have been a better finish is if he had then scalped Jim Mitchell. Like other than that, like this was perfect. This was a wrestler versus a manager match. The wrestler beat his ass. The manager had no chance, and the wrestler got his revenge. He got his final revenge on Mitchell. And yeah, I thought while this match was not a good match, it told a good story. And then after the match, Raven got on the mic and said that he has a destiny to fulfill, and that is to win the NWA title. Punk tried to pat Raven on the back, but Raven shrugged him off. Raven thanked Punk and Julio before setting them free because he wants to do this on his own. Punk got on his knees and begged him to not walk away, and Raven walked away anyway. I'll be honest, like I said, I like the story of this match. I gave it a 4.0 out of 10.
I was just thankful the storyline was over. And I don't know, I was just kind of numb to the blood and the guts. I at least gave it a 2.5 because of the story. But
So you thought that match was just as good as Three Live Crew versus Glenn Gilberti and David Young.
for different reasons, yes.
All right. So they announced next week we're going to have Sabin versus Collier, Daniels versus Low Key, and some kind of clarification over the tag team title situation. Low Key showed up and cut a fired up promo saying Triple X is not a thing anymore and said that Daniels needs to be ready for him next week. Now, I'm going to say this. I like the promo. I like the fact that they're telling us, hey, Christopher Daniels and Low Key are going to wrestle next week, and they kind of gave you a reason to look forward to it. And I say this every fucking time there's a battle royal where a tag team or just two people are, kicking ass and taking names until one randomly turns on the other. Why didn't they wait until there was only two people left in the fucking match to turn on each other?
Oh no,
I
ask
hate
Dutch.
I fucking hate that in battle royals, and every fucking company ever does that. You know what the closest we got to a company not doing that was? Remember when Luger turned babyface in '87? They did the battle royal, did the bunkhouse stampede, and it came down to Luger, Arn, Tully, and JJ, and it was decided that the other wrestlers would throw themselves out and JJ would win. And so Arn threw himself out, Tully threw himself out, and then Luger took JJ's head off and then won the match.
It's because Luger wanted the $25,000 purse. Because wasn't that the reward for winning the bunkhouse stampede?
It may have been. There was always some, monopoly money dollar value given to each individual stampede. And then the winner of the overall stampede would get a boot and $500,000.
Which would always go to Dusty.
Well, I mean, if you're going to if you're a booker and you're going to have somebody win a boot, I'd have, Dusty's going to put himself over for that. Now, do you think the IRS audited Dusty for that $1 million he won with the Crockett Cup and the $500,000 he'd win for the bunkhouse stampede? Because I'm going to bet you he did not claim the extra $1.5 million on his taxes those years.
Probably got some tax exemptions. I mean, this was during the Reagan administration after all, so that's when they started slashing the tax rates.
All right, so we get our main event, which is NWA World Heavyweight Champion Jeff Jarrett versus Sting. It was never explicitly said that this was a title match, which implies that it is not. So a fan had a Sting blanket, so Jarrett took it and threw it at her, which apparently means he is playing mind games with Sting. The bell rang. Jarrett took a walk, got back in the ring. The bell rang again. Then Jarrett took another walk before getting back in the ring. Sadly, the bell did not ring for the third time. While Sting was beating up Jarrett out of the ring, he asked the fan with the blanket to use it. However, it wasn't because he was cold, it was so he could put it over Jarrett's head and clubber him. Sting then hit Jarrett with a fan. No, sadly, not one of the people who don't pay to go to the show, but an actual electric fan that was at ringside. Sting had the match won with a Scorpion Death Drop, but Don Callis ran down and pulled Rudy Charles out of the ring. Jarrett clonked Sting with the NWA title belt, but Jimmy Hart ran down and stopped it. Finally, Sting put on the Scorpion Deathlock, but the red shirts ran in. That was not a disqualification, but seconds later, Jarrett hitting Sting with a chair was a disqualification. We had a 3-on-1 on Sting until Raven made the save. Raven did not work well with the red shirts here, and it was painfully obvious how fucking green Northcutt and Wilson were here. Because these three just, and I don't blame Raven for it. Because Raven's a fucking veteran and has been around the block a few times. Wilson and Northcutt sucked major dick. The heels finally laid out Raven until AJ made the save, and that lasted for several seconds until AJ got laid out too. Abyss then stomped to the ring, which cleared out all the heels. AJ raised Abyss's hand, but it's a swerve, bro. Abyss gave AJ a black hole slam. Sting got his bat, and the heels were nice enough to wait their turn as Sting took out the 4 heels by himself.
5 heels. You forgot about Jarrett's guitar.
Jarrett's guitar is not a heel. Jarrett's guitar is an extension of Jarrett.
Whatever.
Callis proclaimed that Raven will never be the world champion and the red shirts will take care of him next week. That made me care a lot less about next week. And then in case I didn't care less enough about next week, Sting declared that next week he'll be here to team with AJ Styles. Jeff Jarrett somehow knew this challenge was going to happen because he already had a partner ready to go. And he announced that next week on this program to take on Sting and AJ Styles, Jeff Jarrett will team with Lex Luger. And the show immediately goes off the air with a shot of Sting's shock face.
Let's talk. Do you want to talk about Lex on next week's show, or do you want to talk about the reason why this is a batshit idea now?
Oh no, I'm going to get into this right now.
Let's do it.
So now we're sitting here in 2025, and if you don't know any better, you might be wondering what's the big deal. It's Lex Luger. It's another former WCW name, a former WWE name. It's a big star. It is. Lex Luger is a big star, and you might be wondering why are we making a big deal about this? Well, in case you forget, we mentioned this, a few months ago. Miss Elizabeth died in May, and Lex Luger was arrested for felonious drug possession. And what did not help was that a few weeks before her death, Luger had been charged with battery after a domestic dispute. And then, when Elizabeth's cause of death was due to mixing painkillers and vodka, Luger, he didn't get the official legal blame for this, but in the court of public opinion, Luger got the blame for Miss Elizabeth's dying. And it did not help that Vince McMahon put on Confidential a video tribute to Miss Elizabeth, and they played the Lex Luger 911 call, and it was heavily implied that Luger killed her. And so to put it simply, 2003 Lex Luger is incredibly toxic. And this made TNA look low rent and scummy for bringing him in. And Sting had apparently gone to Dixie directly to get them to give Luger a chance, which was either proof of how oblivious Dixie was or further proof of how little she knows about wrestling.
I can both be the correct answer for Dixie.
Now, either way, this last 5 minutes was so needlessly overbooked it wasn't even funny. We did not need Raven running out. We did not need Abyss running out. AJ could have run in for the save, and we could have gotten the same match announcement that we got. And we could live to have Abyss align with Callis some other day. As for the match itself, if you told me that Jeff Jarrett and Sting could go to the ring today, this is the match they would have in 2025. This match was basic, and I don't want to say Sting didn't break a sweat, but Sting's face paint was pretty much intact when this match ended. I gave this match. I don't think it would have been. The thing is, this match would not have been any better even with a finish. Like normally, I'd say, "Oh man, it would have been better if we had a finish." I don't think it would have been. I gave the match a 3.0 out of 10.
That's exactly what I gave it for the exact same reason. Um, Essential Jeff Jarrett main event checklist, but sped up. Passable work in ring, which I gave leniency to because this was around the time where Sting wasn't wrestling and was mainly doing some lame ass Christian movies. And I think this is when he had his CBN show. And one of the
Possibly.
guests was Luger. Directly after, like, I want to say it was around August or September of 2003 when Luger showed up and converted.
I don't know, and honestly, I don't care enough to know.
Look, I was wrestling hungry in 2003 for anything that wasn't WWE. So when I saw Sting have a TV show, I was like, okay, I'll give it a watch. But it was some Christian show, and then I saw Luger in there. They were talking about religion, and I just turned it off.
Hmm. All right. So that is how the show went off the air. Overall match quality this week was a 3.5. We go to overall enjoyment. I'll be honest, I gave overall enjoyment a 5.5. I liked this show more than I didn't like it, but everything in the last 5 minutes soured me as a whole. And then future build 6.0 out of 10 because until those very last few seconds of the show, I was a lot more excited for next week due to Daniels versus Low Key, but now I have even less desire to watch due to Luger. And yep, as we mentioned, the show's a lot less frenetic than it used to be. And I gave this as an overall rating, this show gets a 5.0 out of 10. On the TNA standards, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know about this show. Um, it, yes, it's got a lot less Russo trappings to it, but I'm of the mind that boring bad is worse than frenetic bad.
Well,
And
I
we're
like
getting
the
to the
fact
point
that
where this show's getting boring bad.
I like the fact that I don't need to press pause 10,000 times during the show so as I don't miss anything when I'm writing down my notes. And I will consider that a victory when I'm watching these shows.
Have fun with that in December and January of 03 and 04.
All right. So that's pretty much it for this week's show. That was certainly 2 hours of total nonstop action.
Yeah, it
Before we finish up,
was.
anything else you want to say before we finish things up?
Um, I don't know what type of mind I'll be in next week because I'll have shoulder surgery.
We're going to cut that bastard up and we're going to see what's inside right here on the show next week.
I was told by my X-ray person that looked like a 70-year-old shoulder.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Hope you all enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Fuck the Dodgers.